When we think of empires, we often remember Rome, Egypt, or perhaps the Mongols. But what about the others? The ones whose names faded into dust, whose monuments were buried under jungle roots, whose wealth once shook the earth but is now barely a whisper. Today we dive deep into the story of forgotten empires, civilizations that rose with brilliance, ruled with power and fell into silence, only to be rediscovered centuries later. The Akkadian Empire, the First Empire, 2334–2154 BCE, long before Rome. Before Greece, before Persia, there was Akkad. In the dry plains of Mesopotamia, a man named Sargon of Akkad rose from obscurity. According to legend, he was abandoned as a baby and floated down the river in a basket, much like the story of Moses. From nothing, he built the world's first empire. Sargon united the warring city-states of Sumer and extended his power across Mesopotamia. From the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, he created a centralized government, professional armies, and trade routes that carried goods and culture across continents. But empires rarely last forever. Drought swept across the land, crippling agriculture. Enemies at the borders attacked. The once mighty Akkad weakened until it crumbled, leaving only ruins and clay tablets buried in sand. For centuries, people forgot Akkad even existed, until archaeologists in the 19th century rediscovered the cuneiform tablets and pieced together the story of humanity's very first empire. The Hittite Empire, masters of iron, 678 BCE. High in the mountains of Anatolia, in modern-day Turkey, the Hittites forged an empire built not only on power but on technology. They were among the first to master the use of iron, giving them weapons stronger than bronze and changing warfare forever. Their armies thundered across the land with chariots, striking fear in enemies. Their greatest moment came against another giant, ancient Egypt. In 1274 BCE, the Hittites faced Pharaoh Ramses II in the Battle of Kadesh, one of the largest chariot battles in history. Neither side won a decisive victory, but from it came one of the world's first recorded peace treaties. Yet, despite their glory, the Hittites vanished almost overnight. Around 1200 BCE, the mysterious sea peoples swept across the Mediterranean. Cities were burned, and the empire collapsed. For centuries, the Hittites were thought to be a biblical myth. But in the early 1900s, archaeologists uncovered their capital, Hattusa, and thousands of clay tablets that revealed the truth. A forgotten empire that once rivaled Egypt. The Khmer Empire, builders of Angkor, 802–1431 CE. Deep in the jungles of Southeast Asia rose a kingdom of architects and dreamers. The Khmer Empire, founded in 802 CE, it became one of the greatest empires in Asian history, stretching across Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. The Khmers were master builders, constructing enormous cities with sophisticated irrigation systems that could feed millions. Their crown jewel was Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument in the world, built originally for Hindu gods and later transformed into a Buddhist temple. For centuries, Angkor was a city of 1 million people, dazzling travelers with golden palaces, stone temples, and vast reservoirs. But then, decline. Wars with neighboring kingdoms drained their strength. Climate change disrupted their water systems. By the 15th century, Angkor was abandoned to the jungle. When French explorers stumbled upon the ruins in the 1800s, they could hardly believe that such a magnificent city had been swallowed by the forest. The Mali Empire, the Golden Kingdom of Africa, 1235–1670 CE. In the heart of West Africa, where the Sahara met the savannah, stood the Mali Empire, an empire built on gold. In the 14th century, Mali controlled the world's most lucrative trade routes, linking Africa to Europe and the Middle East. The empire's wealth was so great that one man, Mansa Musa, is remembered as perhaps the richest person in history. In 1324, Musa made a legendary pilgrimage to Mecca, traveling with thousands of soldiers, servants, and camels loaded with gold. Along the way, he spent so much that he disrupted entire economies. Cairo's gold market collapsed under the weight of his generosity. At its height, Mali wasn't just rich, it was a center of knowledge. Cities like Timbuktu became hubs of learning, with libraries and universities that attracted scholars from across the Islamic world. But internal conflicts, invasions, and the rise of rival kingdoms eventually brought Mali's golden age to an end. By the 1600s, it had faded, leaving behind legends of untold wealth buried in the sands of Africa. The Olmec civilization, the mother of Mesoamerica, 1500–400 BCE. Long before the Aztecs and Mayans, the Olmecs thrived along the Gulf Coast of Mexico. They are remembered for their mysterious colossal stone heads, some weighing over 40 tons, carved from volcanic rock. No one knows exactly who these heads represent: rulers, warriors, or perhaps gods. The Olmecs developed early forms of writing, advanced art, and religious practices that influenced all later Mesoamerican civilizations. Yet their story is cloaked in mystery. They left no surviving texts, only ruins and sculptures. Around 400 BCE, their cities were abandoned, perhaps due to environmental change or conflict. The Olmecs are called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, forgotten, yet the foundation for every civilization that came after. The Byzantine Empire, Rome's lost twin, 330–1453 CE. When the Western Roman Empire fell in 426 CE, many thought Rome was gone forever. But in the East, Rome lived on as the Byzantine Empire. With its capital at Constantinople, the Byzantines preserved Roman law, Greek philosophy, and Christian faith for over 1,000 years. They built magnificent churches like Hagia Sophia, which still stands today as a marvel of architecture. Byzantines were masters of diplomacy, trade, and defense. Their secret weapon, Greek fire, could burn even on water, terrifying enemies in naval battles. But despite surviving countless invasions, crusades, and plagues, the empire finally fell in 1453 when the Ottoman Turks stormed Constantinople. The Byzantine Empire, once a beacon of civilization, was no more. And yet, its influence lived on, shaping Europe, Russia, and Christianity itself. Empires are like stars. They are born in fire, they shine with brilliance, and eventually they fade into darkness. But even when forgotten, their light continues to travel through history, shaping the world we live in today. The Akkadians, the Hittites, the Khmers, the Malians, the Olmecs, the Byzantines, all remind us that power is fragile, but legacy is eternal. If you enjoyed this journey into forgotten empires, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Tell us in the comments which lost empire fascinates you the most, and join us again as we uncover more hidden stories from the pages of history.